investigation into the 2023 murders of father and son liquidators Cloete and Chad Murray, and Thomas Murray, is now under fresh scrutiny. According to a News 24 investigation, police may be examining the wrong vehicle, a Ford Ranger, which doesn't match the one captured on CCTV at the scene. The bakkie was reportedly linked to a 125 million rand vehicle finance scam, and key evidence found inside was handed to authorities only months later. Even more concerning is that a key person of interest seen near the Murrays before their deaths is allegedly yet to be questioned, now more than 2 years on, or almost 2 years on. Let's unpack these very serious investigative lapses now and what they mean for the case. We're joined by Chad Thomas this morning. He is the CEO of IRS Forensic Investigations. Chad, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for coming on. I mean, just what I've outlined there now, these lapses in the investigation, interviewing what may be a key witness, is this the right vehicles? Surely this is not the kind of question we need to be answering at this stage of this investigation.
A very good morning to you, Michelle, and to the viewers. It's a very complex case, and we're finding that there's a lot of dovetailing in respect of other organized crime investigations that are taking place along with these murder-for-hire syndicates. So this bakkie in question that was taken in to be examined, that was recovered by the police, belonged to a scheme that was run by an organization called A&A Dealings, a chap by the name of Ari van den Berg. And this scheme had other actors associated with it, including Ryan Barwell, who's been named in newspaper reports as having been implicated in the assassination of Thomas and Cloete Murray. Now, with these schemes operating, we found that a lot of the organized crime syndicates have involved themselves in vehicle-type schemes so that they can have access to vehicles that don't necessarily show up as wanted or suspicious vehicles on a system. They can be used for bad acts, and then they can either be stripped, sent across the border, sold, or just refashioned and sold on. So in this particular scheme, A&A, there were a number of Ford Rangers that had been purchased that all looked very similar, and a lot of these vehicles went missing. One of the agents involved in that was a chap called Andre Minnar, and a lot of those vehicles remain unaccounted for. And we do believe that it was, in fact, one of those vehicles that was used in the execution of this particular crime. One of the vehicles was recovered that was very similar looking, and it is still the focus of the investigation. We have a similar situation with another vehicle finance scheme known as Right to Own. And Right to Own at the moment has been linked directly to Vusimuzi Cat Matlala, who is the focus of another investigation involving organized crime. In fact, he's back in court on the 17th of September to see whether he'll get bail. And there's also linkages there to alleged murder-for-hire syndicates. So like I mentioned at the outset of this insert, we're seeing a lot of dovetailing between syndicates involved in vehicle finance fraud to get access to different vehicles, people involved in murder for hire, and people involved in other bad acts.
I mean, one thing we can say for certain, Chad, is that the same names keep coming up time and time again when it comes to issues around alleged murder for hire and what appear to be assassinations.
Yes, and I think what we need to point out is that for the first time, we're seeing a lot of movement from the side of the police in respect of holding those that facilitate and those that order hits to account. Previously, we only saw the trigger men being arrested, and those trigger men kept quiet. They kept quiet for a number of reasons as to who had hired them and what the motive behind that was. But with the arrest of people like Katie Molefe, Vusimuzi Cat Matlala, this of course changes the entire landscape when it comes to the investigations of these cases, and why it was so important to keep units such as the Political Killings Task Team open and to replicate and expand their type of successes around the country. Hence, we've now heard there'll be a similar unit created up here in Gauteng, where a majority of high-profile assassinations have also taken place, not just like in KZN, where it's mainly ward councillors and mainly taxi bosses. Up in Gauteng, we've had whistleblowers taken out in Vereniging. We've had attempted hits on people in the entertainment industry. We've had people in the entertainment industry taken out. We've had business leaders taken out. And of course, there is a political link to all of that, despite it not looking at it initially, simply because there's this nexus between the underworld and political figures and business figures. The one concern, of course, we have with regards to the Cloete and Thomas Murray assassination is that a person that has been identified as being a prime person of interest in this particular case hasn't been picked up and interrogated by the South African Police Service. There haven't been charges laid. And it's a concern, because when we see what happened last week with Boa van Niekerk, it's virtually a carbon copy. It's somebody that was involved in a massive insolvency inquiry, was threatened and taken out, much the same as Thomas and Cloete Murray, who were involved in massive cases. And they weren't just involved in government cases, they were involved in private sector cases. So people, when it comes to Thomas and Cloete Murray, will always look at Bosasa. When it comes to Boa van Niekerk, they will look at cases like Optimum that he was involved in, but they were also involved in cases where there are underworld figures involved. And it's such an important aspect for the police to look at, and that is this nexus between underworld figures, politicians, and business people.
Yeah, I mean, in the case of Boa van Niekerk, he was warned on Monday that he wouldn't make it to the end of the week, and he was shot dead on Friday. And there are so many other stories of whistleblowers, of people more and more who work in the legal fraternity, in the finance sector, who are being targeted for the work that they are doing. There is a real sense, and I think there's been a lot of discussion, certainly a lot of writing from people like Ruda Landman, who was actually Boa van Niekerk's godparent, appealing for something to be said. Is there a deafening silence, in your opinion, from the president, for example? Because part of building back our country, part of getting rid of criminal elements in the upper echelons of government is about sending a message, getting convictions, finding the people behind the triggermen.
The media has played such a critical role in exposing people that are involved and helping to join the dots. We all know about the Babita story, one of the most heartbreaking stories we've seen. And a book has just been released by a journalist that was involved from day one, Jeff Wicks. And a lot of people are now reading this and understanding the critical role played by the media, as well as by other individuals within both civic society as well as within the state in investigating these matters. Last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, was the Anti-Corruption Summit held at UJ. And what was encouraging is that they had ministers present from the cabinet, and that those ministers were from across the political spectrum. They all formed part of the GNU. We had the Minister of Justice, we had the Minister of Home Affairs, the Public Protector was there, the Auditor General was there, and they all spoke about the same thing: exposing the bad actors and protecting whistleblowers. The legislation presently does not protect whistleblowers. It only protects a whistleblower whilst they're within the employ of an organization that they blow the whistle on. There's no protection for them after that. And there is now a serious consideration of revisiting this legislation, introducing correct legislation. There's also the talk that is now becoming a bill before Parliament in respect of an anti-corruption commission, a Chapter 9 organization that will look at anti-corruption, not just from the investigative perspective, but from a preventative perspective. So there's a lot happening. But I can tell you this, it's scary being in this space. If you're an investigator, if you're an attorney, if you're an advocate, if you're an insolvency practitioner, if you're a witness, if you're a whistleblower, if you're somebody that is involved somehow in the procurement process that identifies a problem, your life is at risk. It's easier to resolve an issue with a bullet and to get rid of witnesses than to have a protracted process and to lose that money. And the last point I want to make is Jeff Wicks said something very interesting at the launch of his book about Babita. He said that what concerned him the most is when he was researching the book, he would have to go to the Tembisa Hospital, which was the epicenter of that 850 million rand fraud that Babita had exposed. And a lot of the money that had been stolen from that was under 500,000 rand each time. So it was multiple transactions. But to get those transactions signed off, the bad actors, the people that were defrauding the state of the 850 million rand, our taxpayer money, would have to literally walk through Tembisa Hospital, past all the vulnerable patients, past all the people that would have benefited from that particular contract, and they felt absolutely nothing. They bought properties, they went on trips overseas, they bought the most expensive fashion and designer clothes, they even had a supercar club amongst them. And it's a moral issue that we need to address, and we need to really take down the really top echelon of these who are benefiting from fraud and corruption in South Africa.
Absolutely. And of course, the message to other possible whistleblowers, Chad, which is, it's incredibly worrying because how do we root out corruption if no one will come forward, right? But the message is clear. Come forward and put your life on the line.
It takes brave people, and we've seen some of those brave people taken out, whether it's a forensic investigator from the Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Council, whether it's a dedicated Hawks member, whether it's somebody that works in procurement and finance like Babita. It's concerning. But what we're seeing is people are standing up, people are taking a stand, people are brave, investigators are not shying away. We feel like there's almost this unity that's now coming together between the public and private sector to fight the scourge. The GNU was a good indicator of the fact that our government is serious about fighting crime. The fact that we had a democratic election, we have a fiercely independent media, we have a judiciary that has maintained its independence, shows that we haven't reached failed state status. We're not a captured country, despite the fact that we had issues relating to state capture. But just Thursday last week, a day before the assassination, another lawyer and another group of individuals received voice notes that were threatening them. People that have gone to their homes, people that are threatening their friends and neighbors, trying to find them to stop them from investigating. So until we have those high-profile takedowns of these facilitators and kingpins, we are left in a dire situation where whistleblowers are still at risk, investigators are still at risk, legal practitioners are still at risk, and we really need to do something about this.
Sounds like the perfect environment for corruption to thrive. Chad Thomas, let me thank you for your time this morning. Chad is the CEO of IRS Forensic Investigation.